Breakfast.
A breakfast where we unbundle top and big stories of the day.
Is vaccine the only way out of this pandemic?
No, definitely not.
Many Ghanaians just want a peaceful election and they are hoping there will be no rigging.
There is nothing bad in borrowing for infrastructure. The minister added that he was impressed.
Please come and see yourself what we are doing with the money we have borrowed.
It's very important. The way we brand ourselves is the way people will carry us.
It's just the driver of the two vehicles that were completely bought.
This one was here screaming.
What do you recommend the government do to support this sector?
Direct intervention, that's what every government all over the world has done.
We are not a parallel security structure. A multiple core is a complementary core.
What I will not encourage Christians to do is to carry dagger and follow anybody. No.
Join us on The Breakfast, 7 a.m., Monday to Friday.
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayome Sally, and today I'm joined by my amazing co-anchor, Elsie Godwin. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank
Looking
you.
all prim, proper, like, what's it called? A gig? What do they call that?
I used to be a geek.
What they happened to you?
The hostel. It was so serious that I had to rethink my choices. But I still have sense more.
You still have more sense.
Why are you black today?
I don't understand, though. I don't understand.
As well. Black is beautiful.
But it is, actually.
Yeah, and it suits our colors. So
yeah. I don't know why people always frown at black. I love black. Like, why do you attach black to a certain, like maybe death and all of that?
Because it's been happening over the years, and when people go for burial, especially when the person is really young.
Yeah, black and all that.
Did you see the video? I can't remember when, but I know I saw something on social media where someone wore black for their wedding.
That's Tiana Empire now. The entire place was black.
No, before that one started her craze.
Oh, okay.
It's happening somewhere else. Like, I don't know why people pay so much attention to that woman, but good luck to her.
Well, she makes news.
She makes news.
Anything she does makes news. So
and those things are.
You can't avoid it when you go on Instagram.
They're so unnecessary, and which is why I talk about the kind of things we project and pay attention on. Remember when we were talking about comedy? Okay, you're not on the show, but you watched it. When we were talking about, Amilola was saying that we should lend our voice to other things that are important. And I said, no, people are saying the important things, but we are paying attention to the ones that are not important.
Absolutely.
Like the one coming she was telling us that her son will not call her husband daddy because it is absolutely wrong.
It is all right. But we are talking social media tomorrow, so I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. Unfortunately, you're not going to be here. All right, do we have Jennifer now? Jennifer is joined us via Zoom. How are you doing, Jenny?
Hey, Owa.
What a guan. How is Abuja?
I'm tired.
Oh.
I'm tired. I'm tired of the hotel life. I think I need to come back home. I miss my house.
We miss you too. Lagos is missing you seriously.
I don't miss Lagos traffic.
I know, right? All right, so today we're talking adoption. Honestly, too many stories over the weekend around, people selling babies and all of that. I'm just wondering, when will this ever stop? So I thought to, let's have that conversation today, because it's actually something, a bit dear to my heart. And here's what we found as today's quote. What makes you a man is not the ability to make a child, it's the courage to raise one. This is from Barack Obama. Even outside of the process of adopting a child, there's also that stigma. Because we were supposed to get a guest today, and the guest literally said, you know what, I can't even come on the show to talk about it because I don't even want my adopted child to know that he or she is adopted. So that's where we are. So if we keep on having these things where we hide under secrecy, people that are using what's it called, this as a business, baby factories, or selling. I mean, I saw a picture of a boy telling the girlfriend to go and sell the child for 300,000. So you will keep having those kinds of conversations. It's not going to stop until we normalize and make it okay, right? To just say, I can't have a child, right? And I'm adopting one.
It doesn't have to be that you, I mean, I'm glad that we're having this conversation. It doesn't have to be that you can't have a child. You can have a child and still adopt a child. So I think that's where I really want us to get to, because I remember I made a tweet about this last year, if I'm not mistaken, and boy, did I trend that day. People were on my neck. I know we'll get to that conversation.
Oh, hala. All right, so a great deal of paperwork is usually involved in adoption. It is an unchanging agreement, just like a parent-child relationship. For most families, adoption is ultimately an act of love and the desire to enrich their family and the life of the child who becomes a part of that family. One will wonder, with the number of homeless children in Nigeria, this process should be swift and quick, but that isn't the case, as we hear many traumatic stories of the challenges couples face in adopting a child, especially here in Nigeria. So Taiwo Akinlami is here to discuss some of these challenges, but first we'll take a break to see what we found in the news. You're still watching Ways. Now, an International Day for People of African Descent will be celebrated for the first time on the 31st of August. So that's supposed to be tomorrow. Through this observance, the United Nations aims to promote the extraordinary contributions of the African diaspora around the world and to eliminate all forms of discrimination against people of African descent. International days reflect the values that society shares. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights and have the potential to contribute constructively to the development and well-being of their societies. Any doctrine or racial superiority is scientifically false, morally condemnable, socially unjust, and dangerous, and must be rejected, together with theories that attempt to determine the existence of separate human races. Now, the United Nations strongly condemns the continuing violent practices and excessive use of force by law enforcement agencies against Africans and people of African descent, and condemns structural racism in criminal justice systems around the world. So this is actually a very, very important day. I'm so happy because it's going to be the first time ever it's going to be celebrated. So this is just the beginning of many celebrations to come. Okay. Absolutely. People do not understand these things except you are living abroad as a black, you would understand it.
I'll always be the first to agree or even to admit that I do not understand their struggles. And I mean, most of what I understand or what helps me understand is when I see it depicted in movies. I'm actually trying to remember some of the movies that have actually blown my mind in terms of how the racial profiling and injustice. There's a lot of them. I don't know why none of the names are coming in now.
Taraji Penson acted. It was so.
There's
I can't remember the name now.
And they do well in depicting their struggles. But sometimes, again, like I said, I don't exactly know it, but I feel like they also have that segregation of attitude when it comes to Africans. Now, we're talking of people of African descent, but you realize that blacks themselves, African American or wherever they are situated, have this superiority complex when they are talking about Africans in Africa. So it just makes me feel like, you know what, human beings are just complicated. If we can all just love one another, that's just all we need, just love. How you want to be treated is the same way you treat the next person. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Until we get that into our brains, we'll still be celebrating, commemorating, and condemning.
How about you, Jennifer? Jennifer, are you there?
Oh, I guess we lost her again.
Oh, did we lose her? Oh. Okay, so let me start with you. What did you find for us in the news?
Okay, so in the news, Lagos State government resumes the administration of second dose of AstraZeneca to persons who received the first dose of the vaccine. The exercise will hold between August 30, that's today, and September 24th across the 88 health centers. The first dose of vaccination was administered. And if you recall, 210,633 people were vaccinated with the AstraZeneca, and of course we're expecting them all to go back to their centers on the days that were indicated on their cards to go and get the second one. And of course, side by side is the administration of the Moderna vaccine that some people have started getting. I've gotten my first shots, you know. So why? What's the room for?
So the whom is that Mr. Saleh decided to go and register me. So on Wednesday, I'm going to take my shot.
Yeah, it's good for you too.
No, so I'm going to go, but I'm just saying I've been hearing a lot of complaints about people having feverish conditions. So I didn't make any plans not to walk afterwards. So I'm just begging the vaccine because when I take you, be nice to me.
I think the vaccine behaves exactly like the virus.
Yeah.
I mean, when the virus gets to a person's body, you don't know what it will do until it gets into the body. Some people get it and they don't even know that they have coronavirus. And some people are bedridden. Some have gotten other ailments from it that is now life-threatening, right? So I think the vaccine works like that. For me, I did not have any reaction.
You are
I'm just, I'm just chilling, right? I'm waiting. Although I heard I could get my reaction when I take the second shot.
Really?
So I don't know, right? But right now, that's why I'm a geek today, man.
Yeah, all right. Okay, what about Jennifer? Is she there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. So what did you find for us in the news?
Okay, so the president of the Senate, Dr. Ahmad Lawan, is in support of the Boko Haram terrorists turning themselves in to the Nigerian troops. According to him, he said that those that have no issues to answer are sanitized and taken back to their communities, while those that may have issues to answer should be taken through the legal processes. But we must ensure that we encourage Boko Haram elements, according to him, and those that they have taken by force to come out to surrender, so that this unnecessary insurgency placed on us comes to an end. So according to him, he's saying that Borno State is a state of peace. So since they've all decided that they want to surrender, we should welcome them with open arms.
Oh, okay. This surrendering matter, I think we'll discuss this thing very time.
What was it on for exactly?
Me, I don't know what to say anymore. Like, it's so ridiculous.
The surrendering?
No, like this amnesty for people that are killing. Like, I don't know.
So he hasn't said anything about amnesty right now. So I read the story, and I know a lot of people are not comfortable with the idea of them surrendering. But please, what is your option? You could not capture them at the end of the day. Are we not supposed to be excited that they actually surrendered? Because if you could capture them, are they not still holding our NDA or Gadia, or have they released them?
The major, I've not heard of them.
You know, so if you cannot catch them and they're surrendering, if Ahmad Lawan's shoe, I'll probably be rejoicing as well, because it feels like a bit of victory and there might be some negotiation and resolution on ground. Because for me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just very interested in the eradicating of any form of insurgency and insecurity. We just want to be at peace. We are poor already, Abi. Let's live this poor life in peace now.
Okay, ma. Biko, I want to celebrate. I want to celebrate our Para-Olympians. Please, let's give them a round of applause. For every single time that they have gone to the Olympics, they always come back with medals. And these are the people that we do not even pay attention to. Currently, from about 4 hours ago, we have 3 gold medals, 1 silver medal, and 2 bronze medals from our Para-Olympians. I say it breaks my heart to mention again the passing of TB Joshua, because I know for every time that they have gone,
there
as he's arriving, as they're arriving, he's giving them a lot of things, houses, gifts, cash, money, and all of that. But we must say well done to them. You know, they are the people that we do not pay so much attention to, but they truly make Nigerians proud and they put us on the world map. So for every time we have an opportunity to celebrate them, let's do and celebrate them, of course. All right, so we'll take a break now. We'll be discussing adoption, the process of adopting a child in Nigeria. How easy is it? Stay with us, we'll be right back.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 when they pay.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, adoption is a legal placing of a child permanently with a parent or parents other than the biological parents. In this process, the parental rights of the birth parents are permanently terminated. By adoption, the adoptive parent then assumes full legal responsibility for the child. The child thereafter gains the same legal rights as a child born to the adoptive parents. It's no news now that Nigeria, the baby factories are a booming business, especially here in Nigeria. Now, I used to wonder why, but not anymore. Haven't spoken to a few parents in waiting, especially to adopt a child. Adoption in Nigeria is no joke, as some have waited as long as 6 years and are yet to be handed a child. Now, do you have a story to share? If you have a story about your challenges or what you went through adopting a child, please, and what you think that can be done to ease the process of adopting a child, because as long as these structures or the processes remain stringent or whatever, the illegal sale of children will continuously happen and no one will be able to put them in check. So if you have a story, let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So I'm going to bring in Taiwo Akilami like in a minute or two, but I wanted to ask your opinion or what you think, you know, is happening. Or do you do anything about adopting a child? Do you know anyone that has tried to adopt a child?
No, I don't personally, but I've heard stories from close quarters. And I think our problem is even much more around the stigma and the warped mentality when it comes to adoption and what we think about those children than the process in itself. Yes, the process is a big issue, but because the people in that sector or in that process also do not understand the value of that process and they also buy into that stigma, that is why a person will be waiting for 6 years because they want to adopt a child. I'm not saying that we do not need due processes. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be background checks. It's very important to have background checks on anyone who is trying to adopt a child. I mean, the life of the child is very important to ensure that there's no form of abuse and all that. But I think we need to begin to have a sector in this economy that is working properly. And if it is the adoption side of this country that is working, then it will bring a level of peace. And then we can now start talking about removing the stigma. I was telling you about a tweet I put out now. I just checked that it was in December last year. So I know one of the reasons people were not very comfortable about that tweet was because I tried to relate it with the relationship between Joseph and Mary and how Joseph wasn't the biological father of Jesus. But throughout the Bible, there is no point where you would ever hear that Jesus is not the descendant of Abraham, right? It was just accepted, and I'm wondering, and then I was questioning why a lot of Christians are against adoption. They just believe that until they go through the normal
Hebrew woman
of the Hebrew woman, then you are not woman enough, you are not mother enough. And I also followed up with another tweet where I said, if you have decided, especially looking at the economy and the world where we are right now, you decided within you that you have the capacity to have 4 children. Now, I'm not saying you must have children. You can decide not to have children. But I'm saying if you have decided that you want to have 4 children, why not just think about having 2 naturally, or in whatever way that ensures your DNA, and adopt 2? Oh, God. You needed to see. People are like, why would I want to adopt when I can have my own children? And that's the point.
Elsie,
why can't you adopt when you have your own children?
If we start that conversation,
I know of a woman who, yes, she's very rich. I wouldn't want to call her name, right? She has her own children, and she went as far as adopting 4 children because she has a lot of money, and she ensured that those children
the same quality of education,
everything.
Now, let me tell you something about stigma. If we start stigma conversation today, we will not finish it.
But you know, the people in the process are held in that stigma.
I understand what you just what you mentioned, but let me hear Jennifer's initial thoughts, and I'll bring in Taiwo Akinlami.
Personally, for me, I think there needs to be a thorough education on adoption. People need to understand the whole adoption process. We need to eliminate that stigma, because I feel like that's what the problem is. Like you said earlier, the guest who was supposed to come on said that he doesn't want his child to know that he or she was adopted. And I get that. I understand where he's coming from, but that shouldn't be the case. There shouldn't be, a child shouldn't feel a certain type of way just because he or she was adopted. You've been brought into a new family. Someone has chosen and has decided to love you as their own. And I feel like it's something you should be able to tell your child. If you've accepted that this person is your child, and I don't see any reason why you have to lie about it.
Because
it doesn't necessarily.
Absolutely. See, so the thing about stigma, I understand that part where you said the people that are involved in the process, they are also stuck up in that stigma.
Yes.
You know, but you see, for me, when I keep on, just Google and see selling of children, you will see a myriad of stories. You know, is it the one that wants to sell the child for 10,000 naira, or is it the one that? So there's a lot of, there's poverty, there's everything. But you see, if you now, as a legal entity that's supposed to give these people children legally, you are making the process tough. How do you now not expect that these kinds of businesses will continue to thrive? And that's why, even because if we want to dwell on stigma alone, we won't even live here.
But very quickly, before you bring in the guests, you know that those who are patronizing the baby factory, it's not so much of the process not working for them. It's so much of, we want to ensure that my wife,
testimony.
Aside testimony, they claim that they are pregnant, wear whatever or travel, and then when they come back, they are able to give them a new baby, so that nobody around them will know that they were not able to have children naturally.
Well, that's
true. It's a multi-layered conversation. I think this would have been nice for a Tuesday night.
I'm telling you, we're still going to bring it back, definitely. But let me bring in our guest. Taiwo Akinlami is a social development lawyer, the co-founder, Power Parenting Company. Is also parents' rights to social protection advocate and publisher. Taiwo is arguably Africa's foremost child protection thinker and practitioner. And Taiwo Akinlami is actively involved in training parents on the list, parents that are on the list for adoption. So he's a perfect guest to have for this conversation. Thank you so much. He's joined us from the US. Thank you so much for joining us, Taiwo Akinlami.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today, as usual. Though I'm mixing pleasure with soberness, because the conversation we're having is a very sober one.
Absolutely.
Where children have become merchandises that have been traded, where the process of getting children adopted has become cumbersome, where there's no system in place to ensure that children have a future and a hope that they deserve, their individuality deserves. So it's a sober evening for me.
Thank you, Taiwo. You heard the conversation. Why I reached out to you last week when I saw that report of a woman trying to sell a child for like 2 million. She was apprehended. Thank God the police caught her. This is just one. If you go online to search about baby selling business in Nigeria, it is crazy. And so when we now reached out to people that say, okay, there are children that are all over the places, they're being abandoned and all of that. What is the process of adopting a child in Nigeria? You needed to have heard the story. Interestingly, as I was driving this morning to go for my meetings, just this morning, they were talking about adoption on radio. And a caller called and said that he had been on the waiting list for over a year. And guess what? Was it over a year or 2 years? In that 2 years, there's a particular amount of money you have to be paying to make sure, yes, you have to pay to make sure you are renewing something. Taro would expatiate on that more. Wow. But the guy was saying that he had spent over 1 something million, and at the end of the day, he couldn't have a child. But God now did it for him. His wife eventually conceived. So there are people that actually do not have biological children, and they are willing to adopt these children. Why is the process so difficult, Taiwo Akinlami?
Well, I think the adoption process is a reflection of the Nigerian system. Same thing that applies to when you want to travel and you want to take a COVID test. It's the same, a lot of things are manipulated here and there. You now know that some airlines have decided that they're not going to fly Nigerians out of Nigeria because they cannot vouch for the validity of the test that to carry out. So the same way, when you live in a country that is upside down, I keep asking myself, is this a nation? Is it a country? Nothing works. And so the law is clear as to how adoption is supposed to take place. An adoption order is supposed to be made by the court. But the administrative side of it is handled by the line ministry in different states. The Child Rights Act 2003 makes copious provision for adoption of children, makes provision as to who can adopt, under what circumstances people can adopt, and the provisions are very clear and copious. There's no confusion at the level of the law. Now, but before the court makes an order, there are processes that people who want to adopt children must go through. For example, in Lagos State, you go to the Ministry of Youth and Social Development. There's an adoption department. You register to want to adopt a child. Preliminary investigations are carried on. A married couple can choose to adopt. A single person can adopt, but a single person, a man, cannot adopt a girl. A single person, a woman, cannot adopt a boy, a particularly older boy. So all of these things are there. So you go through a process of screening for 9 months in Lagos State, for example, and thereafter, there is a letter given to you. With that letter, you go scout for children in orphanages, and when you find one, you come back, then the court is approached, then you have the court makes an order of adoption, because that adoption order has to be specific to a child. You don't make a general adoption order until you find a child, and the child is available for adoption. Then you go back to the ministry. I found a child that's available for adoption. Then thereafter, the court makes pronouncement on that child. Now, if you want to adopt a child outside Nigeria, if you live outside Nigeria, you want to adopt a child in Nigeria, you start the process from outside Nigeria. And so after you have done all the processes outside Nigeria, then you get an agency outside Nigeria that is going to liaise between you and the ministry in Nigeria. And in Lagos State, for example, you are going to liaise with the Ministry of Youth and Social Development. So when you do that, the next thing is that you are able to adopt. And it is only when that adoption starts from outside the country that you are able to travel with the child. That is, if you are adopted, that is called international adoption. Now, Nigeria is supposed to be a signatory to something called the Hague Convention on Adoption. But somehow, because of misplacement of priorities, thinking that if we sign up for the Hague Convention on Adoption, we are signing up for trafficking and all of that, trying to run away from one problem and creating another. So international adoption becomes very cumbersome. So, but when you talk about local adoption, the law is clear. It is the processes that the people that are supposed to operate the law have put in place that have become cumbersome. So, and that is what we are dealing with. I've worked with the Lagos State government to train people who want to adopt. And when I train them as a way of encouraging them, I get their numbers and I get in touch with them from time to time to ask them how they doing, did you finally get a child and all of that. And so one day this day, I sent out text messages to them, as usual. And one of them responded and said, please don't send me a message anymore. You are mocking me. I said, excuse me, please, how am I mocking you? He said, are you not one of them? You trained us. You said we're going to get a child. The first letter, the duration of the letter that you get is 1 year. The first letter has expired. The second one has expired. I've not still gotten a child. So what are you encouraging me for? So I had to tell her that, no, I'm an independent person training for Lagos State. I'm not the one placing children and all of that. Then I walked into a school in Lekki, and the woman saw me and said, Mr. Akinami, you are welcome. Do you remember me? I said, madam, I can't remember me. So you are one of the people, I'm one of the people you trained for the Lagos State government on adoption. I said, yes. He said, do you know 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, I'm yet to get a child. And she told me a particular story that's very pathetic. He said, my husband and I went to this particular orphanage and we found a child. And they told us that the child was not adoptable. And so we left. It was one of our scouting around. You go around every Saturday, going from one orphanage to the other, looking for adoptable child. And they said the child was not adoptable because of the experiences they have had. They suspected a foul play, so they went back to the place, one Saturday after, and the child was gone. And they started raising dust. Where is this child? We were here. It's supposed to be first come, first served. We were here last Saturday. You said this child was not available for adoption. What has changed between then and now? Where is this child? And they made the much noise they could make, but you see, nothing much happened. And she was telling me her frustration that day that she saw me in her school, where I went to speak about how much trouble she has gone through trying to adopt a child. And it's rampant. I tried to adopt for my client. We couldn't get a child in Lagos. We went to Osun State. We couldn't get a child. We went to Ogun State. We couldn't get a child. We went as far as Ondo State. We couldn't get a child. Then finally we got a child finally we were able to get a child in Osun State. And it's because we have personal relationship with the director of child there, and we're able to explain our plight, what we have gone through to try to get a child. And we were able to get a favorable response. But at that time, my client was already tired, They gave up. They were not even interested anymore.
So you've given us the steps to adopt internationally and locally, and it sounded pretty straightforward. But coming down to that screening process, which you talked about, is what I wanted to break down, because apparently that is where the problem starts. We want adoption to be easy. And I'm glad that you're saying this, because if you listen to our chat before she brought you in, we're basically talking about the fact that we are the problem. Our stigma, our pride, our corruption, our always wanting to be kings in people's lives. There are too many factors that come into play. But that process, can you break down the process? What is that screening about? What do they want to see? And why is it a problem?
The stigma is one thing, but I don't think we have gone into stigma here. Stigma is, one, I want to take a decision whether to adopt or not because I don't know what society would think. This person has crossed the hurdle of saying, I want to adopt. The stigma is that I've now adopted the child, whether I want people to know whether it's an adopted child or not, but I need to adopt the child first before I can now begin to deal with whether I want people to know or not. So stigma is a secondary issue here. We are talking about bureaucratic bottlenecks put in place by officials of government in collaboration with people running orphanages. Let me explain to you what has happened.
Okay.
You see, an orphanage is not supposed to be a place where you keep children. It's either you give out the children for fostering, give them for adoption, you give them out for guardianship, you give them out for worship, one thing or the other. It's supposed to be a transit home. There's an international outcry that institutional care of children is not working for children. If children are brought up in a home with love, with little resources, they turn out better than an orphanage that has everything to give to the children in terms of materials, in terms of palatial place where they live. That's what research has found. Today, globally, there's a movement against institutionalization of care in terms of children growing up in orphanages and all of that. But you see, in Nigeria, there are some people who have made running an orphanage a business. It's a business. So because of that business, they are not giving up on this whole idea of institutionalized care. Now, this is the issue. If you have, there are number of children you can have in an orphanage. One, you can have a child who is missing, who is found to be missing. That kind of child may not be given up for adoption immediately because the child is missing. They are still looking for the parents. You can have a child who has lost one parent, and the other parent says he or she cannot cope, brings the child to an orphanage to say, help me look after him or her till I'm able to get myself together and know what I want to do. Now, that kind of child cannot be given out. You can have a child who has been abandoned. You can't trace the parents. That kind of child can be given out. You can have a child who is being ill-treated. Now, I'm telling you to hear about what the law says now. You can have a child who is being treated by a particular parent. They are making life difficult for the child, and the child is being constantly abused, and the parents have shown that they don't have the capacity to take care of this child. That child can be given out for adoption. Now, if you don't give out that child for adoption, you can give out a child for fostering. Fostering is that you don't change the name of the family who is fostering the child. Don't change the name of the child. The name of the child remains the name of the parents, and the child, they just raise the child. Now, there's no reason whether it is a child whom one parent has brought that he or she cannot continue to take care of him or her, whether it's a child who is found to be missing, whether it's a child who is abandoned, whether it's a child who is being treated, there's no reason where orphanages should be housing children, collecting aids, collecting food, collecting indomie, collecting all kinds of things, housing children, when there are people who say they are available to foster, to give guardianship. People are available to adopt. So we keep hoarding children. Another racket that is going on there is that people who are giving out children for adoption, they size people up. They size you up. They look at whether you can handsomely reward them for their labor that they have had on the children. So if you go there, they size you up, they look at you. This one cannot really reward us. They're not going to give you a child.
Wow.
So the problem is that how come orphanages are full of children? Fostering is not taking place. Guardianship is not taking place. People go through the process. People go through the process of their background being checked, of their taxation being checked, of where they are living being checked. Everything has been checked to say they are in a good place to adopt children. The Lagos State government has even given them letter. The Ogun State government has even given them letter. The Osun State government has given them letter to say, take this letter, we have certified you fit to adopt. The challenge, that is where the challenge begins from. There's no challenge at the level of verification of identity, verification of status. There's no problem with that. That happens. There's no problem at the level of training of those who want to adopt. I've done that for the Lagos State government. Train hundreds of people. There's no problem with that. But the problem begins from when you get that letter that qualifies you to say you are looking for a child. That you're supposed to take to an orphanage. You are supposed to take to a rehabilitation home and say, I have a letter from the Lagos State government. I have a letter from the Ogun State government. I have a letter from the Oyo State government. That is for orphanages existing in Oyo State, for the orphanages existing in Lagos State to say, I want to adopt a child. Now, this is where the problem is. The problem is this. The orphanages can do whatever they want to do. But who is regulating the orphanages? It is the ministry that is regulating the orphanages that should ensure that the orphanages do the right thing. You don't just give people letters. What is that? People, after you have trained them, they paid you, you give them letters to go and be looking for children.
And that letter has to continuously be renewed. You know what, Iwakilami, we need to take a very short break. I want to hear Jennifer's question. Because that letter, you need to keep renewing that letter. So imagine if you have letters from three different states, you have to be renewing those 3 different states every year. We'll take a break. This is a big business. Stay with us, we'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Thanks for staying with us. This is a serious matter. Okay. Okay, so if you're just tuned in, we're having an amazing chat. It's not so palatable, but it's an amazing chat with Taiwo Akinlami on the challenges of the adoption process in Nigeria. Let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-8463. You're allowed to be anonymous today because it's fine. Everybody don't like to talk about this thing. But Jennifer, let me come to you because you've been holding up for a minute.
Thank you, Taiwo, for all that you've said. Honestly, it is really sad, and I'm very shocked by what I'm hearing today. But my question is this. If I want to adopt a child, what are the key steps or what are the processes that you think I need to go through, or the things that you think I need to do to at least get my leg in the door?
Well, your taxation issue, where you live, are you able to accommodate a child? What is your level of income and all of that? You begin to go through a level of counseling, communicating in a level of training. Once you do all of that and they found you suitable, they give you a letter to say you are now found fit to go adopt, to go look for a child. Now, when you find a child, you come back, then a court gives an order that you are the adoptive parent of that particular child. The process is simple. The law simplified it. But you see, it is not, in Nigeria, what the law says is one thing, what people do is another thing entirely. The challenge we are dealing with is because we have a law that is supposed to be an instrument of social change. We are yet to adapt ourselves to the letters of this law, to the spirit of the law, to the thinking of the law, because this is the point. Why are there children? This is the fundamental question. Why are there children in orphanages, living there, growing up there, becoming men there, women there? Why? Till tomorrow. Why? Go around Lagos. You see, you are journalists. Go around Lagos, go and look at orphanages. Children are there. Now, if you say the child is not adoptable, is it not fosterable? When globally, the thinking is that children should be growing up in families, not in institutions. There is no institution. You have 20 children, 25 children, 10 children, 15 children at a time. When there are parents, yes.
Sorry to cut you because, okay, so I know of a particular orphanage that you and I know of. And I know that the children there are well taken care of. So what people do is they go there and say, you know what, I want to sponsor this child through school for the next term up until university. I want to be in charge of the school fees. So they get people that come into those orphanages and they donate money. And I have gone to that orphanage and I know that they are well taken care of. So are we not modeling up the good and the bad? Because I know some of these orphanages are using this as a racketeering. They're using it as business, right? But some orphanages are actually doing very well, taking care of these children. So should we just say that all of them do not have the right to keep certain numbers of children in their orphanages?
You see, orphanages before were residential. But global thinking now, orphanages are supposed to be transit homes. You see, let me tell you something. I belong to a group where, working with SOS Students Village International, we are developing the protocol for eliminating alternative care, eliminating institutionalized care, trying to create alternative care. We've had series of meetings, series of deliberations, conversation with government officials, and one of the things that we are doing is to bring viable alternative to say, look, there's guardianship, there's fostering, there's all kinds of things. If people are not aware, there's even an exchange program, which means these children go to live with a family for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Is an exchange program, and they come back. Are you getting? Because you want them to experience the family. The issue is this: no matter how good your intention is, if your intention does not comply with recent and the present global practices, no matter what you give to those children, the problem is still there. You don't. Orphanages all over the world today, what you call orphanages, are losing the place of being residential. It's called institutionalized care. And plethora of researches have found that that's not how children are supposed to be raised. So now, the problem, now, why this is important in this conversation is that if, for example, in Lagos State, the Minister of Youth and Social Development is in charge of adoption.
Yes.
The Minister of Youth and Social Development is in charge of regulating orphanages, rehabilitation homes. Now, is the ministry saying they are not aware of the level of dishonesty going on with so many orphanages? Are they saying they are not aware that adoption, the bureaucratic bottleneck of getting a child, particularly when you go to an orphanage, the question is this: who should be the final arbiter? Am I the one that is supposed to be carrying the letter around? And if I go to a place that say a child is not adoptable, can I see the register of children that are adoptable and the ones that are not adoptable? The circumstances under which they are not adoptable, the circumstances under which they are adoptable. Can I now say, if I cannot adopt, can I foster? Can I remove this child from this place orphanage and take the child to a loving home? Sorry. Can I do all of that? These are conversations, but as long as there's no regulation, you give somebody a letter, you look another way. Whatever happens to the person in trying to find a child becomes the person's headache. It's sad. Now, someone told me what he went through from Lagos to Enugu, to Ogun State, everywhere, to run these tests, to engage on the adoption process, and you keep seeing children, and you keep telling us that the children are not for adoption. Now, note, when people are not able to get it the right way, the thinking is that I must get it anyway, anyhow. By that, we do not justify anyhow, anyway. The truth is, when people begin to buy children, there may be people who buy children because they want people to think that this is their own biological children. There are people like that. And there are people who buy children because they are frustrated in the adoption process. Now, they are not justified. None of them is justified for doing that. But you see, in the society, we have different thresholds. We do not have the same thinking. We do not have the same ability to delay.
Can I come in here, Mr. Taiwo?
And that is why, let me land, please. And that is why it is important for the process to be pure, for the process to be sure, for the process to be followable, for the process to be clear. I know that if I start adoption process in 9 months, on the 9th month, I can take a child home. Absolutely. As long as I'm still interested.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you've said a lot, and like Jennifer said, it's more heartbreaking, and it's even worse than we thought. A lot of people that have not gone through this process will not understand these things until they are hearing it from you. So I still want us to go to the solution, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to prefer solution, and we hope that someone is listening and someone would do something. And it takes me back to the stigma, or should I say cultural bias. And do you think that is one of the reasons the processes are not working, in terms of people in the orphanage having, not just the orphanage, now people in the system themselves not seeing the need for a person to come and adopt a child? Because I've also heard stories of how they are treated in that system. Like a person goes to adopt a child, they've gotten the letter, and you see how the attendants and everybody's looking at them like there is some sort of disease on them. Why are you trying to adopt a child? There's always a perceived bad intention in wanting to adopt a child. So can you say this is because of the cultural bias in us as a people that is hampering that system? And what is the solution? What can be done?
Okay, so for me, I want us to separate these issues.
Okay.
If culture is the problem, it means that I'm not gaining anything from it. I'm just a cultural man or a cultural woman who just believe that I'm defending a culture. A person who's defending a culture may not be gaining anything from it. It's just because the person has a misconceived notion of what these things should be by virtue of cultural background, and the person has concluded that those who want to adopt children are not doing well. They have lost their heart, their head, they have lost their mind. But these same people still give out children for adoption. It's just that the adoption is go to the highest bidder. So the problem is not culture at that level. It's not that the person has problem.
It's racketeering.
I won't give you. I will not give you because you cannot reward me. I will not give you because if I continue to give everybody, my orphanages cannot run. Maybe one of the people you need to bring to your program are people running orphanages.
Well, she's coming in next week.
You need to bring them and let them come and explain why these things are like this. Children are not adoptable. Are they fosterable? Can you give them out for guidance? Can you give them out for an exchange program? Why do you want to keep them in your orphanages? Now, it's different. There are children who are in hospices. Hospices are children that are terminally ill and they are just bidding their time. They need a special level of care and you may want to keep them in the hospice. But in developed clime, there are even people that now take home children who are in hospices. So I think that's number one thing is important for us to understand. There may be a level of cultural thing there, cultural belief and all of that. But what we are talking about right here is a system that is not working. And the way forward for me is, so at the time, the Lagos State government saw the evil, the decay in the system, and all of that, and put embargo on adoption. As a matter of fact, some people were moved around. There was a reshuffling of the entire ministry, of the entire department that dealt with adoption in Lagos State at that time. I think that was 6 years ago, thereabouts. Because the government heard the cry of the people and decided to do something. But that does not solve the problem. When you suspend adoption and you just suspend it because there's an outcry, what did you begin to do? Now adoption has come back. What are we doing differently? What are the processes we need to put in place? Now, so for me, the way forward, number one, we cannot tell people we must have a record. In the Ministry of Youth and Social Development, that is the statistics of all the children in orphanages in Lagos State, for example, and their status. How many of them are adoptable? How many of them are not adoptable? So the reason why people will not go around is for the purpose of chemistry.
Thank you. I was just going to say, Taiwo, if we have a computer database, the pictures of all the children in the database, so you are supposed to pick from the ministry there. Then when you select maybe 3 children, then you go and do a physical check. Then you pick which one you want, but not that you tell me to start jumping from orphanage to orphanage. That is is already a big gap.
Mr. Tao. That is primitive. So if you want to, so what does it take to have a database of all the children in orphanages in Lagos State? A mega state, a smart state, mega city. What does it take to have that? If there's no corruption, there's not somebody benefiting from it. So have the database. By the time people are coming, we can even stay. For now, we are not taking application because we don't have enough children to go around. But you keep taking application upon application. You don't know how many children that are available for adoption and the ones that are not available. Then you issue them a letter. After 1 year, they come to renew the letter. After another year, they come to renew the letter. They keep renewing the letter. I think what we can do, if we are serious, is to generate a database of children, and all the states in federation should do it. These are the children available in orphanages or in rehabilitation homes. These are their status. 100 children are available for adoption. So when you start the process, from the beginning, they can even pair you with a child to say, this is the child you are likely to adopt. The way a woman does a scan when the woman is pregnant and she's she's already feeling that I see the child that I'm carrying the same way, because that is the experience. So that finally, when it's time to adopt, like we were said, I have 3 children. For the purpose of chemistry, I want to go there and check my affinity, the way I feel towards this child and all of that. Until we do that, as simple as it sounds, is rocket science in Nigeria.
Okay, we have some comments. Jennifer, quickly, let's hear yours.
Yeah, before I go to my comment, I just want Ms. Taiwo to answer 2 questions quickly. My first question is there a body in place or an institution that keeps tabs on kids that have already been adopted in the past to find out how they are faring in their new homes and how their families are taking care of them? That's one. Secondly, I would like to know, as let's say I want to adopt a child. You said that there are trainings that are being given to these parents. What do these trainings entail? What are these parents being taught?
That one is a long question. Jennifer, you know what? Read your comment quickly because we have like 4 minutes left, so he would answer everything all at once, quickly. Jennifer, are you there?
Okay, so yeah, I'm here. Okay, so I have a question, name withheld. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The process of adopting a child in Nigeria is delayed because of kickbacks or corruption. In UK, it takes 6 to 8 months for the process to get approved after checks have been done. The only fees you pay in UK is a one-off court charge of less than £200. You can only be disqualified to adopt in the UK if you have criminal records, you're too young, too old, or you have a bad health condition. Nigerian adoption laws should be looked into. Adoption process should be done within a year, encouraging couples in need of adoption or couples who want to adopt. The checks can be done in Nigeria within the space of time.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a message here. It says, good evening, Antiowa. The key word from the guest, people are being frustrated in the process of adoption, and that's why some people prefer buying a child. The highest bidder is another key. Thank you for that. Okay, so Taiwo Akinlami, we have like 1 second. I think
okay,
has gone.
1 second. That's always the problem with your program. You don't have enough.
We don't have enough time.
So, but let me say that, so the Ministry of Youth and Social Development in Lagos State oversees, keeps tab on children that have been adopted both within and outside the country to ensure that the children are being treated. Now, the problem again, let me say, for the last time, is not the law. This law, Child Rights Act of Nigeria, 2003, and the Child Rights Law of Lagos State, 2015, as amended, and the Child Rights Law of different states are clear. The Child Rights Law of Imo State, Enugu State, I worked on a case recently, I think from Imo State. These laws are clear. As a matter of fact, Imo State or Enugu State has moved ahead by saying that you can move from fostering to adoption. You can do fostering first, and if you like the child, and this relationship is able to go on well, then you can proceed to adoption. That is also solving a problem. That's what the law has done. The law is clear, but the law is clear. The people are running, are they clear? People are enforcing it, are they sure? Are they doing know where they want to go? So the problem is never with the law. Those who draft the law sit down to do the law.
So Taiwo, is it possible, quickly, to answer the person that held his, is it possible to have all this process done within 1 year?
It's 9 months. I mean, it's supposed to be 9 months.
So it's possible.
Your 9 months can be 6 years because they will renew the letter for you every year. Then you now go through all of those. The letter is not just being renewed. You go through all of those tests, processes, medical checkup, all of those things you have done before. Before you collect another letter. It's not that once you just show up, they'll just give you another letter like that. So you have because some of the tests you have done have expired.
Taiwo, so you know what? We have to leave it here.
Again.
We have to leave it here.
So
we have to bring it back.
Be there until some people become frustrated.
You know what? Thank you so much, Taiwo Akinlami. This conversation will definitely need to continue. All right, so thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Elsie Godwin. Now, before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram. It's at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow us now. Follow friends and family. If you missed our quote, here it is again. What makes you a man is not the ability to make a child, it's the courage to raise one. This is from Barack Obama. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.